Hello, guess what? Your reservation has now been confirmed, and guess what? You're now on the show with the Guest Room of Dr. D. The Guest Room is a platform, an authentic platform for our guests to be able to share their experiences through real-world entrepreneur, community advocacy, and real-life conversations here on this show. Hey, we are so excited that you all decided to come in and tune in to the Guest Room. Right here on the Guest Room, I need you to do something before you leave, even before you exit, even think about it. I need you to like, share, and subscribe to the Guest Room. Again, we are an authentic platform where we have engaging conversations with our guests who will share their experiences through their advocacy, community work, as well as their entrepreneur desires. Again, I am Dr. D, and welcome to the Guest Room. And here now on the Guest Room, we have our guest here, Miss Nicole. Thank you, lady, for being with us.
Thank you for the invite.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We have been trying to get this thing together.
Yes.
You've been busy, I've been busy, but hey, we got it together and we're here. So I want you all to you be able to share with our guest a little bit about who you are. But first of all, let me back up. How did we meet? Tell the guests how we met.
At church.
Okay.
So we both are we're both members at New Calvary
Right.
Missionary Baptist Church in Atlanta, Southwest Atlanta. And so I just love Dee's spirit. I saw Dee doing a Bible study Wednesday night on live, and I just fell in love with her spirit. And so I just was like, I want her to be a big sister, a mentor to me. And so I just walked up to you after church and like, what you doing? Who you are? Yes, and that's how we initially started our relationship.
Yeah, and it's been fun because we had brunch finally. We finally linked up and did brunch. And that was just a sisterhood moment where we got to really know each other, to know each other's background, and then just to be able to share some commonalities and encourage each other. So that was a delight in itself. And while she was talking, I was like, I want her on the Guest Room. And so here she is. So now we got the formalities out of the way. I now want you to be able to tell our guests who you are. Introduce yourself to our guest.
Sure, Dee. So I am, I call myself Sister Nicola. I am a mother of 5 amazing sons. I am a community organizer. And I kind of just leave the title as that. I know Pastor spoke about being humble today. And so that is definitely who I am. But with the community organizing spirit, I also work with other organizations with pushing out policies to bring people home from prison. I have myself personally organized and brought home several individuals, and also helping community really get a sense of their own power, and also helping families understand that they don't just have to be in those situations, but that they can have community support and have family support. And so that's one of the stronger sides of me. But also I do domestic violence work. I was in an abusive marriage at one point in my life where I lost my 2 younger kids. And for me, I didn't look at that experience as being something that was totally bad, even though the experience itself was.
Right.
I looked at what he went through prior to us getting together. And so he was one of the youngest people in America to have ever been sentenced to death row, but also exonerated. So imagining my 16-year-old child, or even myself at 16, what was I doing at 16 years old? And so just understanding like what happened to him was a effect of what I experienced was a residual effect of what happened to him.
Okay, so you talked about various things. You have 5 amazing sons.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk about them later.
Yes.
Okay, and then you were saying you endured and came through a domestic violence situation. With that being said, how do you encourage or advocate for young ladies who may be experiencing that? How do you mitigate that to be able to say, you can get through this, you can get through this, you will get through this, these are some of the things you can do? What do you do to be able to help them in that space?
I guess showing up as my authentic self,
Right.
first and foremost. And just, I think that when I experienced that, I didn't have nobody to really talk to, because of my background, and I believe the way I was raised in a church is kind of, I don't know, from my experience being a PK, you're not always loved through different situations, right? You're not always supported. But then also the embarrassment, right? So just letting them know that, listen, I understand where you at. But then also some people are not really ready to actually leave those situations. And so just really being there as a support base for them. But then also mentoring and loving them through that process. So I wrote a curriculum
Yeah,
called
talk
Pave It
about that.
Forward
Yeah, you did. I have that down. You
that
have,
speaks
yeah.
to the experience of Black women going through domestic violence situations. And so one of the things that I experienced also is that white women most of the times have resources that they can reach out to. Black women, we don't have those resources, and if we do have them, they're very limited. And so one of the things that my ex-husband did, I was incarcerated. And the charge that I had was a domestic battery charge. And so having that coming home with that, many agencies didn't want to help me and understand, but they understood that I was the victim. However, because I had that charge, I was kind of like flatline, right? And so my domestic violence curriculum really helps people that, again, Black women that have actually gone through that process, understand that, listen, this happened to us, but we can get past that, right? And so there are different steps and different levels that I kind of talk through throughout the curriculum to kind of help them understand who they are internally, right? But then also healing from that trauma experience, but then also educating them on the historical roots of trauma that happened, right? And so understanding that, listen, this man didn't just wake up and say, I want to beat you today, but then also understanding historically there were things that happened to each one of us, right? That leads up to who we are as individuals. And so that's a little bit about the curriculum.
So the curriculum, like you said, is called Pave It Forward. So who do you distribute the curriculum to? Do you do the training? Do you go through an agency, or do you have your own agency? How do you get that out?
Kind of community organizing
Okay.
work. Most of it is word of mouth.
Okay.
I don't promote it as much as I probably should, but most of it right now is just word of mouth, and just personal experience. People that know what I've been through, but then also people that know about Pave It Forward that have actually gone through the curriculum or have actually met me somewhere along the way, can kind of like, listen, I want to get be a part of that and get a booklet or whatever.
Okay, that's good, and I think that's needed. Like you said that people have flatlined you based on that, and that's of course we know that's just straight out discrimination, as we know. And do you see that you said that like the white population, they do have the resources, and now the more African American and more of the minority groups do not have that. So for those, have you ever had those from the white organization come to you, or those individuals have suffered through that? Do they come to you? I'm just wondering, does that cross section to you, or they might feel like, oh, I don't need her assistance or whatever? How has that been? Have you seen any other besides the whites? But you might have had some Hispanic populations come to you. Have you seen that diverse?
I've had one Hispanic organization in California reach out to me. Just one, and they wanted to know how can we partner, because they felt like they were, of course, experiencing some of the things that Black people experience. And so they wanted me to kind of like not say that it was an all Black female curriculum. Maybe it's a Black and brown curriculum, but I understand that our struggles are still different, even though they may have some similarities.
Right.
Being a Black person, I don't think that nobody has ever had the type of trauma that Black people on this earth have had, and so I don't struggle with it. I don't think that I want to alter it too much, but I do accept partnerships but again, I just want them to really understand that the Black experience is like none other.
Right. The Black experience is the Black experience. It's just like when they don't understand the concept of Black Lives Matter. I can understand you want to be an ally. You want to be that source of support. But until you walk the shoes, you will never be able to understand the whole scope of what I've endured, or what other ladies of my complexion have endured. So, yeah, that's got to be something. And I admire you for that. When I was reading your bio, I was like, wow. I was just intrigued. I was like, this is what she does. Okay. So to understand that, and to be able to understand how far that goes and the depth of that, pave it forward. So I think that's pretty neat. Then I also read that you led a movement. So tell us about this National Relation Abuse and Violence Awareness movement. What is that about?
So I understand that again, it was because of this domestic violence work. I understand that all relationships are not healthy, right?
Right.
And so you and I can be in an abusive relationship, but it won't be labeled as that. And so for me, I kind of dug a little bit deeper, and again, in creating those type of conversations, I love to write, and so I kind of put together a smaller curriculum based around that, but just really organizing people to understand that, making sure that you have healthy spaces and healthy relationships are very important in life. And so, yeah.
I think that's interesting, the movement, because we have so many movements going on, moving parts in this world, especially since the height of the pandemic, so many movements was going on. And I think sometimes now that the pandemic is not totally gone, even though the nation want to say it's gone, the pandemic is still here, because if you look at it, we still have the point of discrimination, we still have the point of sexism, we still have all these different facets that we're going through as a Black and brown people, or even may be some of the minorities going through this. So the pandemic in itself is not over with. Maybe the health part of it, they may think, but the residual effects of that is still here. So I look at it and I'm just like, okay, Nicole has a great background, because it does kind of align to what we're experiencing now. And could you imagine all of the emotional stress that Black women, suppress? Now, with that being said, you have a very deep and rich background. How can you encourage those women who are going through this to seek therapy? Because, in the Black community, it's a taboo. If you say you're going through a therapy, it's like you go to a therapist, that's like, you're going to see somebody on the psycho ward. No, a therapist is very... I've gone, trust me, it's just like, it's so calming. It just gives you that moment of saying, with no judgment, So how can you help those women who may say, well, Nicole, I'm going through this, but I really want to seek additional support, particularly a therapist, because there's a taboo stemmed around it. How can you help them in that space?
Listen, a year and a half ago, I would have probably been one of those taboo women.
Okay.
I owned a mental health clinic at one point in my life with my ex-husband, and so I just didn't think that I needed no help, right? And also, you growing up in a Black church, we just taught, like you said, so many taboos, right? But when I tell you, if I don't pay nothing else, I see my therapist every other week, and it has been very helpful with me. Have gone through as many things that I go through and still going through,
right.
And recovering from so many things. I think that my therapist situation is, first of all, I tell everybody, listen, I love my therapist, right? I was just talking to a young lady last night, and the first thing I said, well, you need a therapist, and I just sent her my therapist. My little cousin called me yesterday, and she was telling me about something else she went through. I was like, listen, you need a therapist, right? So for me, I don't even try to sugarcoat it. I think I'm going to be very direct and say, listen, everybody should have actually experienced that,
right,
with seeking a therapist.
And I think that's very good that you say. It goes back to your point that you originally stated, that you were very transparent in that. We use that word so loosely. I'm transparent. You're not going to tell everything. That's not being transparent. I'm very open. And when you say that, that helps us as a Black community to say, I'm transparent at a point that what was taboo at one point is now becoming, it's not necessarily common, but we're slowly coming out of that. Because as you know, in our parents' generations, that was, don't you say nothing. What goes on in this house, stay in this house,
Yes.
But now when I find, and I told my mother, hey, she's like, what? And my mother, is from the medical field. And she's like, what? And I was like, I was. And she's like, what? And she's thinking that something is like wrong with me. No, it's just an outlet for me. I needed that because of what I was experiencing. And so I think that's very much needed. And people think that it has to be always related to something, a form of abuse, or it's not to be something so traumatic. But sometimes you need an outlet, to help you. So I think that's very commendable. And like you said, you gave your cousins, your nieces, all of that information to let them know, hey, she's going through it. I can do this too. And that's a sense of, that's like what we learned today. That's humbling.
Yes.
You're not trying to get the glory. You're not trying to seek high. That's very humbling, because it takes courage too. Because it takes a lot for us to open up. Especially when we're like, I didn't tell nobody that. It takes a lot for that to happen. So I look at that and I'm just like, wow. So I want to ask you this right here. Now, listening to you say that, and you start up a lot of organizations, but outside of the abuse, what really led you to start these organizations, these movements?
Yes. What led me to start it? I think that I was always had a burning desire to help community people.
Okay.
But what led me to start it was my experience, my actual experiences, or just being amongst community people and just figuring out what it is that they had gone through. I just want to piggyback off of one thing that you said about that therapy piece. So another thing about therapy is when people see the transition that you're going through, they start to want, what you have. And it's so crazy because my ex-husband, who I was in an abusive relationship with, called me maybe a couple of weeks ago and was like, I think I want to try therapy, because people see what's going on with me. Even my mom, who was like your mom, right? Therapy. She wants to go to therapy. Me and my kids go to therapy together now. So when people begin to see the change that's happening within you, they want some of that, right?
Yeah.
And so that therapy piece, I think, is, I think my walk helps people to understand that maybe I should try this therapy thing, because it's working. I see a different. My oldest son actually got on the phone with my therapist. His first session was like, listen, thank you, because she's a different person. And so when people see it, I think that they want it.
And it's something I taught today earlier. And what it is that, people have to see the actions rather than listening to what you say. Because what you say if it doesn't line up to your actions, it makes people like, nah, I'll take a time out on that.
Yeah.
So I got some more questions for you, but we'll be right back on the guest room with Dr. D. Talk soon. Hey everyone, it's Dr. D. I'm back with you again, but hey, I want to let you in on something. I wrote a book. Yes, I did. I wrote a book. Hey, it's called Cage in a Cubicle, Spiritual Lessons. And you know how this book came about? It came about as of me writing my dissertation and also me journaling. But could you believe that I was actually living my book through journaling as well as working? That's amazing. And when I say working on a dissertation, but actually working for a living. But also this book came out of me being able to understand what I was experiencing in the corporate sector. Been working in corporate America all of my life and enduring so much in corporate America. And I often ask God, why am I experiencing what I'm experiencing? And he said, why not? And so out of that, I was journaling, talking to people, just seeking some kind of advice and support. And little did I know, as I was journaling, I was also writing my dissertation, which reflected upon how I am actually living my life in corporate America. Now, I don't down corporate America. It is what it is. But from my experiences, it taught me some spiritual lessons. And God really spoke to me through this book. He spoke to me through my journaling. And he spoke to me through my dissertation. So I want you to do something for me. I need you to head over to Amazon. And I want you to go purchase this book, Cage in a Cubicle, Spiritual Lessons. Talk soon. Hello and welcome back to the guest room of Dr. D. Your reservation has been confirmed, by the way. Hey, I want to let you know that we have a special guest here, Nicola, and she has really been dropping some nuggets to us, some transparent moments with us, some entrepreneur endeavors, and she has really been giving us an eye-opener as to what she does, what she has endured. So we're going to continue the conversation. Again, Nicole, thank you so much for being with us on the guest room.
Thank you.
Now, earlier you said in your bio, as you were introducing yourself to us, the guest, that you have a production company. So can you explain to us or give us some backdrop on your production company?
Sure. So it's an all-female production company, all Black female production company. Okay. And so one of the things that we really focus on is our stories for Black people, Black experiences. Our first story that we are working on, and actually we've been shooting this for the last couple of months, is not unfortunately, this is actually one of the stories that I'm excited about doing, is the death row story from Sharif Kuzan.
Okay.
He's the one that I was married to that did went to jail at 16 years old. And so we have a life after death row trailer that we're actually putting together to actually get ready to start shooting.
Okay.
Hopefully at the end of this year we'll start shooting.
Oh wow!
Yes,
so where will you be shooting at?
So New Orleans is one of our first locations.
Is that here a little accent coming from there?
Yes. New Orleans is one of our first locations, and then also we'll have a couple of shots here because he did do some work here. And then so his story is the first story. The second story is about a female that did time in prison. Again, these are stories that are not often heard,
Right.
not often seen. And so to really have these stories be put out. And so one of the things that I like to focus on is I always talk about the historical roots of that. And so we'll have some scenes in there where it becomes very educational so that kids and also adults can see the background of what happens and how different situations kind of come about in people's lifestyles.
Okay, that seems interesting. Like you said, people don't actually hear about it. You know, it's like those hidden stories, but at the same time, those hidden stories have such a significance.
Yes.
You know, and if you really delve into that, you know, I love to look at the documentaries. You know, when I do look at TV, and I do have time to look at it, and just to be able to say, "Wow, they endured all that. I did not know." And for some people, like you said, people look at it as being unfortunate, but actually some lessons in that. Just like with my book, I said some spiritual lessons in that. It's some lessons within those traumatic situations. And so how did the production, you know, for all women, Black women at that, how did that come about?
So I've always done some form of, I like to work behind the scenes for the most part. So most of the times when people hear about the work that's going on, they don't know that it's actually my company or my business, because that's just who I am. I guess that's the humbleness that I guess I walk in. So the production company came about because I've always done this part. I just have never, I didn't have the, and this is where therapy came in. I didn't have the, I guess I didn't believe in myself enough to do it on the level that I'm doing it on now. And so one of the things that I would do is I'll kind of fight it. As a child, I used to do a lot of writing because I wanted to produce and direct. And so my mom took me to go see my first stage play, which was called Wicked Ways. I'll never forget that stage play. Yes, Wicked Ways. That was at the Singer Theater in New Orleans, Louisiana. And so in seeing that play, I was like, this is what I want to do. And of course, when Tyler Perry came out, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And so for me, I just always, again, I like to write. And I've always just been that person to kind of be behind the scenes, putting things together. Last year, I did a job with a very known director here in Atlanta who's a friend of mine. And so he was like, Nicole, when are you going to get back out in the field? And so I think that was the initial drive to push me out there. But then also understanding that the production business is one of the first well, not the first, but one of the arenas that you do not have to have any type of degrees, any type of experience. You just got to come to work and say you're going to work 12 to 14-hour shifts. And so for me, again, knowing that most people in community don't have degrees. Most people in community don't have the experience that can really support them with these jobs that they are actually creating now. And so for me, I just wanted to make sure that we have spaces that Black women in particular, because we are the roots, right? Black women in particular have jobs.
And that plays a lot what you just said, because, you know, they look at us as having a month, you know, International Women's Month. But we, like I told the ladies today, we make history every day. You know, be it known, we make history every day. So there's no, hey, we don't need a month. We have a whole year. You know, we do this every day. But also with you having that production company, have you went into and tapped in some of the schools, or, you know, for Career Day, have you tapped in some of the schools that are looking to the arts? Because, you know, you try to take arts out of the schools in certain districts, you know, and people are really pushing for the arts to be back in the schools, because just like you said, some students are not cut for college, and that's no discount on them, because some people just like, I don't want to go to college, I want to do this. So have you ever looked in tapping into those younger generations, our little ones, to say, hey, it's something in you? Because, you know, we have some actresses in them elementary schools, you know.
I'm sure.
Have you looked into that arena to help them in that space, or organize something or get a movement for them?
So I wouldn't say I'm new to Atlanta.
Okay.
But that's why I'm going to use you at Dr. D.
Okay.
I'm going to use you to help me get in these schools to make sure that these kids do have opportunities.
Okay. All right.
For them when they do graduate or go on to the next level in their life.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that partnership.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you also, you have over 20 plus years, you've been working with the People Institute for Survival and Beyond. And you said that you're a community organizer there, facilitating undoing racism, community organizing workshops. So tell us about that, the People's Institute for Survival.
Sure. So the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond was started by two Black men back in the 1980s.
Okay.
One of them is originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, Dr. Ronald Chisholm, who I look at as like a dad in this movement. They started this organization because they say they understood that Black people In particular, they would have all these workshops and would talk about racism, right? But no one would actually have those deep conversations. And so Ronald Chisholm and Dr. Jim Dunn, who's actually from wherever Dave Chappelle dad is from, I think Yellow Springs, Ohio, came together and they formed the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. And so we were one of the only organizations for a long time that would have those deep conversations about, and it's a 2.5 to 3 day workshop, have those deep conversations about the institutional racism that's going on. Now it's a popular thing. Now it's a trend. Right. Everybody, I mean, you turn your head, everybody's having these conversations, but they were one of the first organizations in the world to actually have those deep conversations.
Wow, I like that, those deep conversations. And people always say we want to have a safe space for conversations, but I call it brave space conversations because it takes a lot of courage to have those conversations, especially with two men. You and I were talking about that before we started here, about how men are finally opening up, when you give them that space and opportunity for them to genuinely open up with no kind of like tags on them or stereotypes on them, but them to be their authentic selves. And I think that's really neat. So you're just all over, girl. You're doing it, but it's for a cause. It's for a cause. And it's all for the community as of your advocacy as well as in your entrepreneur endeavors. So I want to ask you right here, what would be your charge for the community to get behind your efforts? What would you charge the community, our guests, to get behind your efforts and what you're doing in the space of domestic violence, in the space of right here with the People Institute, those of the healing trauma? I mean, all of that. How would you get that charge to us?
I think when you say get that charge.
Yeah, how would you charge us? What would be your charge?
Sure, I would just definitely say to educate yourselves and begin to do the work on yourself first, right? Okay. That would be the first, for me, that would be the first step, is to really figure out what it is that you want to do, where it is that you want to go, and then, of course, but also reaching back and making sure that we don't just leave everybody left behind, right? So once we get ourselves together, make sure that we reach back to make sure that we bring community with us, make sure that we bring our family members with us, make sure that we bring in whoever it is that's left behind with us.
Okay, all right. So first, get yourself together. I like that. How can you help somebody else and you messed up and jacked up, right? Gotcha. So let me ask you this right here. What is your core philosophy? What is your core philosophy?
So we're always evolving.
Right.
We're constantly evolving. I'm not the same person I was yesterday, 20 minutes ago, 30. So I think for me is really just being honest with myself wherever I am in this process, in this journey called life. So just being honest with myself and also holding myself accountable, but not beating myself up based on things that we were taught as children, as Black people. So just really, just always making, and then also making sure that I'm constantly learning more so that I can be better for myself and also my community.
Okay, so be yourself, know who you are, and love yourself, basically.
Self-love, yes.
Yeah, that self-love is deep. And I think sometimes we get so caught up to say, hey, I did this and my past is holding me captive, And actually it should be a point where it helps us to be able to not only hold us captive, but it should be able to release us from that trauma that we've experienced. Yes. But it's up to us to say, hey, I refuse to be this way. I'm going to step out either way it goes. My past is just what it said, my past. So we're going to leave it there. So, okay, that's a good one. Your philosophy is pretty deep. I like that. That's self-love. So let me ask you this. What lessons so far have you learned along the way in your life, in your journey?
I have learned so many lessons. I would say the one that I am captivated by the most right now is not being hard on myself.
Not being hard on yourself.
Not being hard on myself. I was a young mom, a teen mom, had kids. My first two sons, 9 months apart, and so the world, the church, I think treated me, I guess the way that it's just set up to treat you. And so for me, just not being hard on myself has been the best therapy I think I can give myself and to help others.
To help others. Yeah, it's very serving of helping others. Now, I want to ask you, I know your biggest accomplishment are your 5 sons. So let's talk about them. Let's talk about them. Let's chop it up and talk about them a little bit.
Yes. This is the fun part.
Yes.
So my oldest is Nicholas Mackay. He's a sergeant in the
Okay.
Army.
All
He's
right.
also now a chaplain. But
Thank
he's
you,
also,
Nicholas, for what you're doing for us in this country.
thank you, yes. And then he's also a minister, baptized by Reverend Posey
Okay.
Redmond.
All right.
Then I have my 22-year-old Wanye, who is an entrepreneur like his mom. He
Okay.
sells shoes online. Still lives in New Orleans.
Okay.
My big Pooh Bear, but my baby.
Okay.
And then I have my 16-year-old who is my quiet storm. So he don't talk much,
Okay.
but very, very, very intelligent young man. Also in the film, he's in the film industry right
Okay.
now. So that's my first three sons. They're with my first marriage. Their dad and I had many businesses together, but one of them was a recording studio.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like, I guess, where he got his little start at.
Okay. Good. All
And
right.
then I have the last two who are they were born in an abusive marriage. However, they are the heartbeats to my soul. They make parenting much funner this
Yeah.
go around. I didn't think I enjoyed parenting the first time around because I was young and just trying to be hard on myself. But this time, these two little boys, Yasir and Sharif, who will be out here next week
Okay.
for Easter, they bring joy to my heart.
So that's the biggest accomplishment that you've
I
had.
would say
And I
yes.
see that just the beam of
Yes,
just joy for
yes,
that and
yes.
just 5 boys.
5 boys.
That's my niece. She has 3 boys. And I'm just like, wow. And they all think they're her dad, you know.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
very protective of their mom and everything. So I can
Yes,
imagine you get that too. Far
yes,
away and even distance when they're
yes.
with you. So I just find that so exhilarating. And like you said, you were very open to say that the younger two were born into an abusive marriage. But look at the reward of that. They're now coming and blossoming to who they are, but they're giving you a new life, a rebirthing, so to speak. Because
Absolutely,
what you experienced prior to now it's overshadowing that. So
absolutely.
I think that's really great. So you all, I want to let you know right here on this guest room, we have some deep moments here. On this guest room, we have deep conversations with our guests, like I said, who are shaping the world. And we've had Nicola here who has given us a whole backdrop on who she is, what she does, and how she's impacting this community. So again, Nicola, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
entering the guest
Z.
room and being a
Thank
guest on the
you.
guest room of
Thank
Dr. D.
you.
And hey, guests, I want to thank you for participating in the guest room. Before we leave, I need you to like, share, and subscribe. And Nicola, before we leave, please give us some backdrop on your contact information.
Absolutely. So, of course, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Healing Humanity Trauma Center, also Pave It Forward. You can also email me at healinghumanity.tc@icloud.com. Again, that's healinghumanity.tc@icloud.com.
All right. And again, thank you so much for listening to us on the guest room. Until next time, talk soon. Bye. Hello, everyone. It's Dr. D again, and I want to just come in and tell you this really quick. Did you know that I am an author? Yes, I am. I'm an author of 2 books, Cage in a Cubicle, Spiritual Lessons, and It's Time to Own Your Truth. But our first book here, Cage in a Cubicle, Spiritual Lessons, came as a result of me working in corporate America. And with that being said, it also came as of me writing in my journal as well as my dissertation. And I couldn't believe it that I was actually living what I was writing, in a sense, in my dissertation, that is. And so here it is, it's coming now to fruition as of now writing a book. Who would have ever thought that I would be writing a book about my experiences in a cage cubicle? And every now and then, I thought the cage cubicle was there to hurt me, but in essence, it was there to protect me, and it gave me some life lessons as spiritual lessons as well. And so I want you all to be able to tune into this book. Read this book. It's really good because it can help you on so many different levels. How you can purchase this book is go to Amazon.com. The book is sold there. Hey, just help a sister out, and I look forward to being able to answer any questions you may have. Just drop me a note in the chat, and I look forward to connecting with you. Talk soon.